Welcome everyone. Very glad to host you today on this Brainwave GRC webinar together with TJ Cruz from Cyber Protection. I am Cyril Golin from Brainwave GRC, and together we will introduce the PAM Booster as a service product designed for CyberArk. Without further ado, if you can switch to the next slide, please, TJ. So this is TJ, this is Cyril. Just a few words before we start to explain what we'll address during this webinar. We're going to present several challenges that we discuss with our customers, and I'll get back to this in just a second, around the management of CyberArk, and we'll demo CyberArk PAM Booster to explain how we can address those challenges, and then we'll have a short Q&A session. So why PAM Booster? You may or you may not have heard of Brainwave GRC before. We are a leader in identity and access analytics, which means that our job in life is to understand, analyze access rights, logical access rights, and do that in a variety of different environments and technologies. More than 3/4 of our customers are also CyberArk PAM customers. And we talked with them, and based on their inputs, their feedbacks, we came to realize that there were a need around CyberArk PAM, and we created PAM Booster to help those customers make the best possible use of their CyberArk PAM. So why did we come up to this conclusion that there were some needs around CyberArk? What are those needs? What are the challenges that our customers had to overcome? This is what TJ from Cyber Protection, which is a Brainwave GRC partner, will explain in a few seconds. So TJ, it's up to you now.
All right, thanks, Cyril. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thank you for taking time out of your day. We understand that people are overscheduled all the time. You've got meeting after meeting, and another webinar is just, can be very mundane. So I'm going to try to keep this as lively as possible. So as he mentioned, my name is TJ Cruz, owner and founder of Cyber Protection Services. We are a Brainwave GRC partner here in the United States. We are also a government and commercial cybersecurity consulting company. And one of the things that makes this product very unique is some of our customers do use CyberArk as a privileged access management solution. As with any enterprise solution, as though most of you should know this, if you don't, I would be very surprised. But any enterprise solution you put in place, whether it be a SaaS product or an on-prem or a hybrid, you're going to have unforeseen challenges. And that's not to say that the program is bad, because CyberArk is a great program and it's growing in popularity. We all know that's why we're here. But they focus on privileged access management. They don't necessarily focus on some of the other things. As enterprise architects, we need to kind of keep in mind. So that said, when talking to our customers, talking to some of the Brainwave's customers, all of whom are CyberArk users, we identified some challenges. Now, the PAM Booster addresses a number of challenges, but in the interest of time and being respectful of everybody's time, we're going to focus on 4 of those challenges. So that said, this is just kind of a screenshot or a slide from CyberArk. We know the program. If you don't, for those of you that may not know a lot about CyberArk, privileged access management, essentially, you can have credentials that access different resources within your enterprise, that being, hardware resources, application resources, other networks. All of those require user credentials, and trying to manage all of those passwords can be a real challenge. CyberArk really steps up and answers that challenge. So won't spend up too much time on that. Let's go to the next slide here. So privileged access management. We all know that within an enterprise, we'll have processes, policies written, but sometimes those policies or processes aren't followed to the letter, or there might be some sort of issue in those processes, maybe a restructuring take your pick. Lots of different reasons that could happen. But looking at the picture I've got here, let's just take an example. John Doe was a system administrator, had access to all of the rights within Active Directory that he needed to maintain his IT duties, threw that into a safe template, put that safe in a vault, and then that gave him access to all of the different applications within the organization that he needed access to do his job. Again, role-based access. So John changed and became a security auditor. Well, as we know, through separation of duties, or at least I hope most of you know, through separation of duties, security and IT should be separate. They should be segregated for a reason. That said, that means that the rights that he had as a system admin should not be given to him as a security auditor. So how do you ensure that that happens? Because again, processes, policies break down. Well, let's take a look at an example. So here is the PAM Booster. Here's the dashboard. Lots of different things in here. If you're looking for a more technical deep dive, we certainly can accommodate you, but wanted again focus on just the main challenges that we're discussing today. So that being said, let's go into the CyberArk configuration here. I'm going to come back to this dashboard a little bit later, but again, I want to focus on what we were just talking about, and that is role-based access. So I'm going to go into identities. There was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Fuller that came to my audit list, and I'm going to explain why in a future slide as to why his name came up. So just bear with me. Just know that his name came up. So it would be Orlando. Orlando, when I click on his information here, not only is the PAM Booster pulling information from human resources, and so that would be specific job roles that human resources has written down, but it is also pulling information from Active Directory and CyberArk. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we see here, down here, his job and organization is a sales representative in the market area Europe. Well, when CyberArk talks about privileges, typically speaking, salespeople don't have those privileges because it's usually elevated privileges, not just normal user privileges. So how did he get access within CyberArk? Well, let's take a look. So you click on access here, and you can see there's lots of different tabs here, but I'm going to go right to the CyberArk safes. And I click on here, and not only does Mr. Fuller have access to the Brainwave Vault server, it looks like the safe he has access to is the past manager, which I look over here, I see the permissions, and it's retrieve accounts and use accounts. Well, within that organization, salespeople should not have this access. So how did this happen? Within CyberArk, there are audit logs. There are ways to find this information. The question becomes, how long does it actually take to go in and pull that information and start doing your analysis to figure out what went wrong? Where did the policy fall apart? And the PAM Booster actually gives you not only a very holistic and clear view, but you can continue to drill down and find more information on it. But it even has a user interface that gives a graph to show exactly how Mr. Fuller came across these rights. So here's the person's name. The ID is an ID linked to human resources. It then connects through Active Directory. So this is an LDAP pull for his user profile within Active Directory. And it looks like he's part of the market area Europe group. And that was most likely a group for those salespeople to either be a distribution or a security group within Active Directory. And then that market area Europe group was then put into the EU research development group. Well, this group actually did need the access. So I would be very interested to find out why somewhere in Active Directory, this group was then nested within this research group. It probably was an error in configuration. We all know those can happen. it's also probably a very easy fix. However, without knowing that this person has these rights, if for some reason his account became compromised in one way, shape, or form, then that threat actor that has compromised it now has access to this vault information, and that can be a real serious concern. So, Cyril, did I miss anything on that?
Yeah, I was about to ask you a second question about that. We have customers that have implemented or trying to implement a delegated access model, meaning that they have safe owners that only own certain safes that are, I'd say, closer to the business, those people. How can we do that is implement a delegated access model with CyberArk?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So delegated access is interesting, because if somebody needs, let's say, a safe owner and wants to see all of the different users that have access to that safe, within CyberArk, you can do a search and find all users for all safes, but segregation of duties or separation of duties and ensuring least privilege, a safe owner shouldn't necessarily have knowledge of what the other safes and how their mapping is set up. So you need to have a way to actually look at that directly. And in fact, there is a way to do that. This in particular, this access shows how he ended up there, but there is also a way to identify at the particular safe level of who has access to what, and then assigning just that safe owner those rights to view it within PAM Booster. So there's a lot of opportunity there to really kind of keep least privilege at the top of your list. Good question, though. I appreciate you asking.
Thank you, TJ.
That said, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say, oh, no worries, no worries. I was just about to say that we can let the audience think about this for a few seconds before we resume the presentation. And that will be a principle between each challenge. We'll let you a few seconds to think about it, take notes, and maybe also answer some questions if you like in the GoToWebinar chat.
Any comments, feedback? We're going to give everybody 30 seconds, because I know when I'm watching a webinar and I go to a new topic, I can't remember what the last topic was. So we're just going to give everybody a few seconds. Kind of imagine some of the maybe challenges when it comes to segregated access, or things that you've dealt with within your own CyberArk implementations that you'd kind of like to see. Put it in here and we'll do our best to see if PAM Booster can help with that, or potentially a feature add in later roadmaps. About 5 seconds left, and we'll go to the next one. All right. So the next challenge, how can I monitor CyberArk risk management? This is a big deal. If within your organization you have any kind of compliance framework, or if there are ongoing risks that you want to monitor through either continuous monitoring or enterprise risk management, all of you, I'm sure, have had to deal with risk management at some point in your duties. That said, there are risks when it comes to privileged access management. Is the configuration set up correctly? Does everybody have least privilege? Do you make sure that password rotation and CyberArk Policy Manager is associated correctly with the resources or credentials within CyberArk? Well, again, PAM Booster does a really good job of showing this, and in fact, this is one of my second favorite features. We're going to go over my first favorite feature in the next challenge, but this is my second favorite feature, because in going through meeting the security policies, it starts with this dashboard here, and at just a quick glance, not only can you see where your security policies are working, but you can also see, since the last data ingestion that PAM Booster looked at this information, you can see how you've improved. So credentials without password rotation have gone down from 17% to 15% since the last time we ingested it. As we all know, password rotation is really important on credentials and resources. So just knowing where you're vulnerable at. So if you click on this here, you can actually go in and see all of the resources within the credentials that do not have password rotation. But I would like to actually focus on a different risk dashboard, and that would be the security control defects within CyberArk use access. Now these particular risks right here not only can map to very common compliance frameworks, for example, in password rotation and NIST 853 Rev 5, IA5 enhancement 1, you're supposed to ensure that password, not only complexity, but password rotation is assigned to your service accounts and your user accounts. You can see right here, there's credentials without password rotation. There's 129 of those within this instance. That is huge as far as trying to do a security audit and trying to come through. Maybe there's a reason you don't have password rotation turned on, but you can actually go right in here and find out which users don't have that password rotation turned on. There's another one in here that I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's another one in here that shows contractors without an expiration date that can access CyberArk Safe. If an external user comes into your network to do something and that external user is given access to a safe, but maybe that day the person didn't have coffee and didn't turn on the expiration date when they set up their user account, well, suddenly that contractor leaves, but that account is still active and there is no automated way to ensure that that account does not have access anymore, i.e. an expiration date. So this shows you almost immediately what's going on. You can also look up here and get a risk associated with the accounts and the risk level. So you can see I've got 17 accounts here that are at risk level 1, but if I go to risk level 4, I've got 7 accounts that have a very high risk. I can click right on that, go in here, look at these accounts and try to figure out why they have risks. So let's just pick the top one here. And I come in here, I identify the risk level. I can go into access to find out what they have access to. I can look at the controls. The controls is the key when it comes to risk. You can see that there's an active account from somebody who has left the organization, and now that's a risk. We know that sometimes HR doesn't talk to IT, and when HR doesn't talk to IT and that person leaves, either for an extended period of absence, is terminated, is transferred, but IT isn't involved in the checkout process for whatever reason, now suddenly that person's account still has access. That's a big risk, will hurt you in an audit of any compliance framework. And this is a very, very quick way using the CyberArk tool and the PAM Booster on top of it to identify those and remediate them before your audit. So Cyril, again, did I miss anything?
That was very comprehensive. Thank you. Just maybe have you made the mapping between the NIST standard and what's in PAM Booster?
I'm glad you asked. Actually, your head developer and I have worked for considerable amount of time to not only mapping those risks that we just talked about. So again, I'm going to go back just to those risks that we saw. And these particular risks that show up here, I actually have mapped the NIST 853 Rev 5, and we're working on mapping them to other compliances such as PCI and HIPAA. So in future releases, you'll be able to find out exactly where these map to with whatever compliance framework, or at least the top 5 compliance frameworks that are out there. Good question.
Thank you, TJ. I don't know about you in the audience if ensuring the compliance of your PAM deployment and meeting auditors' requests around the CyberArk is a challenge for you, but we'll let you just a few seconds to think about that before we switch to the next challenge.
As we talked about, give everybody 30 seconds to kind of get their thoughts, maybe write some notes. And, you know, I'm not seeing anything quite in chat yet. Hopefully I'm answering all your questions and not boring you, but I certainly be happy to tell you some dad jokes, but I've been told by my wife I'm not allowed to do that anymore because we don't get invited back to parties. And I certainly want to invite you back to webinars in the future, so I won't hurt you that way. All right, so let's go to the next challenge, or as the French would say, challenge. All right, so
Good accent.
yes, so now I promised you my favorite feature, and it's not the last feature, understand, but this is my favorite feature. This is something where Brainwave GRC has had over 10 years experience in analyzing risk across Active Directory and in multiple different risk compliance. They have GRC in the name because it's not just compliance that they look at, but they look at risks and they want to try to figure out how those risks happened. And that's one of the reasons that CyberArk chose them to create this PAM booster. So in that, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes HR doesn't talk to IT, sometimes IT doesn't talk to the CyberArk administrators, and all of which need to work seamlessly together in order to ensure a proper configuration for any enterprise solution. It doesn't really matter, but in this case, CyberArk is what we're talking about. So if, let's say, somebody within HR has moved a person and does not let the IT people know, as we saw with Mr. Fuller, that there might be a potential risk. So that said, let's jump back into our dashboard. And as I said before, there's a reason Mr. Fuller was on my list. So we're going to kind of identify how that came across. So there's this really ingenious tool here called Analyze with Clue Finder. Clues meaning if there's risks or if there's things that are happening, behavior analytics, those types of things, those real-time monitoring pieces, that actually inspired the development of this particular tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I see here, just in my first top dashboard, the most critical changes by vault and the most critical changes by save. And suddenly I see that there are 9 organizations, and let's be clear what an organization is. An organization could be a division or a department or some sort of sub-organization within an enterprise, okay? So that's what organization means here. And so I see that 9 organizations now have access to my CyberArk Vault. Well, let me take a look, because that's weird. As a CyberArk administrator, I don't remember authorizing 9 organizations, so I kind of want to look to see what happened. So I see here that I've got 9 divisions within the within HR that are reporting to CyberArk that they are now part of the CyberArk safe access chain, right? Well, I see here, and I know from working in the organization that the market area Europe should not be on here. So let me take a look. Let me find out what happened. So handling of the group hierarchy is the reason that this happened. I mentioned before how the market area group got nested into the research development group. The term for that is the handling of the group hierarchy. Something has changed. So right up front, PAM Booster has given me kind of an answer to my question without having to call the ITs to find out, hey, why did this happen? I can actually call them and say, this group got nested in this one because I've been told what's happened. Then I can find out if there was a configuration change on their side or as to why that happened. And as I mentioned, I come down here and I see Orlando Fuller's name in here. I've already gone into his account. I've already shown you the graph. So I'd like to focus on a different organization within here because it's a little different. And that is the IT operations, Mr. Howard Bell. Well, right now I've got Howard Bell and a previous organization that was reported from HR, and that's the IT support department. But the IT support, he's been moved now to IT operations within HR. Well, that said, I'm sorry about all the, I thought I disabled these, but I apologize for that continuously showing up. That's going to get annoying. But the IT operations here is what the organization he is being reported as part of now. So that means HR has said, hey, this person is transferred. Okay, well, if this person is transferred, let me take a look and go into his graph. And now suddenly I see that Howard Bell is part of the IT tools, or still part of the IT tools Active Directory group that gives him access to different vaults and different servers, or I'm sorry, different vaults and different safes. So when he moved operations, somewhere along the line, he was not removed out of this security group. That is a big problem. So I contact my buddies over at IT, say, this person is really supposed to have been moved out, find out why the checklist, the transfer checklist wasn't completed, and suddenly that risk is taken care of. And there are other reasons that will show up on here, but one of the other things I'd like to point out is it gives you a recommendation of what to do in the steps of, hey, these were unusual configuration changes. Since the last time you showed one organization was added the last time, but now we've got 9 organizations. You probably should look at these. And then the PAM Booster uses those analytics to try to identify the reasons, hence the clue finder. We've seen transfers, we've seen the hierarchy change, and it then even gives you a recommendation. You know, never come with a problem without a solution. So the PAM Booster doesn't just report the problems, but it gives a solution, or at least a recommended way to approach this issue. So, Cyril, did I miss anything?
Thank you, TJ. Maybe just a precision. You mentioned earlier that we were chosen by CyberArk to build the PAM Booster. That's not exactly correct. We are a CyberArk C-Cube Alliance partner, and so CyberArk certified the.
Okay. My misunderstanding. Sorry about that.
Yes. No. Yes, I have a question for you. Have you, in your personal experience, an anecdote to share with us about a catastrophic failure generated by a mistake in a configuration error?
Catastrophic? Maybe not. I was actually in a distribution group, not a security group, in Active Directory. This was way back in the day when they were always used, and I ended up that distribution group got nested into a different distribution group with the executives, and I ended up getting sent all of my colleagues evals. I ended up getting because we were in eval session, I got their evals, I got their salaries, I got all of the things that I was not supposed to have access to, but it was sent to me because I was part of this group, and I was kind of only one of 2 people in this group, and one thing led to another, and I got nested, and yeah, that didn't go over well with the IT team that was responsible for it at the time. So that said, if we had a tool like this, it probably could have been prevented much earlier.
I guess what's interesting in your story is that the safe security is based on the same mechanism. I mean, Active Directory group that may be nested, and et cetera. So the same type of mistake could happen. And what's really important there is the ability to detect it ASAP.
In our experience with our customers and doing cybersecurity audits, compliance audits, configurations, because remember, we're coming in and auditing the ITs to see if they're doing a good job. We see it every day. We see permissions being given, least privilege not being followed, and it wasn't purposeful. They had set up the roles correctly, but they had groups within nested groups within nested groups, and they configure with CyberArk, and suddenly they have a ton of people that have access to these safes and these vaults. So it happens all the time. So that said, let's jump back into, again, we're going to give everybody just a few seconds. If you have an anecdotal story, please share it. If there's something that you've seen that's happened similar within your CyberArk experience or one of your customers that have CyberArk, please share that. This feedback that we're kind of soliciting from you is what gives birth to these tools to make all of our jobs and all of our lives a little easier, and we can save some man hours from doing analytics in order to do this. All right. So hopefully you guys had some opportunity to look at that. So let's look at the last challenge. Now, it's all about the license packs. It's all about, saving money. If you're a small to mid-sized business, even a big business these days, we're always trying to find ways to optimize our spending. This particular feature of the PAM Booster is no different. As we all know, within CyberArk, you can run a report that says, okay, I bought 100 licensed seats. I'm using 90 of them, and I've got 10 left. But what happens if I need to hire 20 people, or I've got 20 subcontractors coming in and they all need access? Do I have to buy another license pack? Well, maybe, but what if there was a way to look at all of the seats and see if the people that have been assigned seats actually still need those seats? You want to optimize your licensing, and you want to look at what licenses are being assigned to whom, and if that is still appropriate. So let's go back to our PAM Booster, and coincidentally, it's called Optimize CyberArk License Usage. So let's click on that and see what's going on. So instantly, you see a dashboard here. It shows how many licenses are being used. In our demo environment, we've got 58 licenses that have been assigned, which has gone up since the last time we did a data ingestion by 13. Okay, well, that's great, but does that really help me? Well, I'd like to show this tab here where it shows dormant users. Now, the dormant users are users that have been assigned a CyberArk license but have not logged into their CyberArk account in this case over a year. But you can actually change it all the way to 3 months, and suddenly I look within 3 months, I've got 36 users that have not logged in at least in 90 days. That's really important, not only from a best practice perspective and a compliance perspective, but I need to find out why. So if I need to find the list of users that maybe I can pull their licenses from them, or the service accounts that have been assigned that license, I would love to have a nice quick way to do that. And that's what this does. You can see down here, I've got one engineer that hasn't logged in over 3 months. I've got one security operations person that hasn't logged in, and I've got one production engineer. Well, 3 from 36 is different. Well, if you click on 36, you'll see that it's logins. There are some identifiers from LDAP, but more importantly, I see service accounts here that haven't logged in. Maybe those service accounts no longer need that license. I can do some investigating, find out, and potentially remove that license from whatever accounts I need, and then have the needed licenses for future use. But if there's a way to kind of identify future use, well, in fact, there is, and that's this booking tab here. As we mentioned, CyberArk is closely tied to Active Directory. Let's say you have a transfer, reorg, whatever the case is, where you've got a lot of users within Active Directory that eventually are going to need that CyberArk access. Well, in this case, this will actually tell you there are 65 users per Active Directory that are part of different groups. And these groups are, when I say groups, I'm actually referring to HR designated departments and organizations, not necessarily the groups within Active Directory. So I want to make sure I make that clear. But these are 65 users that have access to CyberArk, they just have never logged in. So math is really not my strength, but if I've got 100 license pack and I've got 58 licenses issued, and 65 of those users, or there's 65 users that are going to need a license, Adding those two together, that's more than 100, which means we may have to buy another set of licenses from CyberArk. But I also see that I've got 36 dormant users that potentially have licenses that I can use. Now, if you notice next to it, there's also users with no rights. These may be this, there may be similar users in this, but users that don't have access or don't have any rights assigned to them within CyberArk, but have a license, are also potential users that you can pull a license seat back from for another user. So as you can see, if I were just to take out the 36 users as an example, I would only have 22 licenses assigned with 65 users coming on board that are going to need access. Guess what? I don't need to buy a new license pack now. So just one of the ways the PAM Booster goes on top of CyberArk and helps kind of optimize that ROI and maybe save yourself some person hours that are doing some analysis. So there's lots of savings, lots of ways to optimize CyberArk all the way around. Last time I'm going to ask, I promise, Cyril, is there anything I missed?
I don't think so. No, thank you, TJ. That was very informative. And I think also the end of this very short glimpse into PAM Booster. Let me share with you a few infos if you're wondering how you get hold of PAM Booster or how you could evaluate this wonderful new tool. If you would please.
Of course, yes.
Yes, thank you, TJ. So PAM Booster is readily available, but for now available invitation only as part of the what we call the early access program, which means that we are still capturing feedbacks and having one-on-one conversations with select customers that are doing this assessment with us. What would you gain by joining the early access program? First, you would get a free subscription to this service, and obviously you would be able to use it, meaning that you get this personalized assessment of your CyberArk configuration and permissions and risks associated to those permissions. And finally, you would be able to have direct conversation with the Brainwave GRC's teams. I would like to thank you, TJ, for participating to really the design and testing of the PAM Booster, and obviously for participating to this webinar and sharing your experience. Anyone who's interested in having a prolonged conversation with TJ, you have here an email alias you can use to contact him. TJ is based in Baltimore and is a renowned security auditor and security consultant. So please
thank you.
feel free to contact him. Regarding the PAM Booster, we'll have 2 additional sessions, webinar sessions that will take place in the coming weeks, and so stay tuned for the confirmed dates as soon as they are announced. First, we'll have a technical deep dive to really explain how the PAM Booster is working, how it's interfaced with CyberArk, how we analyze the data, etc., etc. And we'll go a little deeper into the functionality as well. And then we are scheduling a customer panel from privileged access management to privileged access governance with actual customer cases and testimonies around privileged access governance using PAM Booster.
All right.
The PAM Booster general availability is scheduled on May 2nd.
Oops. Sorry, Cyril.
No worries. I was done. So
okay.
Maybe while I am reviewing the Q&A, the questions, maybe you can tell us a dad joke, and
no. My wife tells me I'm not allowed to have dad jokes anymore, but I will tell you a little bit of an anecdote. So we showed this PAM Booster to one of my customers who had CyberArk, and although we didn't necessarily have they didn't have it actually demoed in their own environment, the lead went back and asked his people to identify how many licenses were dormant. And when he came back and told us, he said it took 2 people almost a full day to get and identify all of the different users that were dormant and had no rights. Now, I'm not sure what process they followed. I'm sure there might be faster ways to do it, but he said that alone would have paid for the entire implementation, because it would have saved him a lot of money. They had a very, very big organization. So again, and that was just kind of a sneak peek even before we did the webinar. This is an invitation only. This is not a hugely known product. You have the ability to jump in and really take advantage of this product as being an invite only group. So
thank you for your kind words.
You'll get the PDF. You can reach me here in the States at PAM Booster at cyberprotection.com. You can also reach out directly to Brainwave GRC at PAM Booster at brainwavegrc.com. I'd like to thank everybody that came into this presentation. I know your time is valuable, so please keep in touch with us and reach out if you have any questions. So with that, give you 3 minutes back in your life, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much, TJ. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you very much again, TJ, for presenting this webinar, and I'll see you around very shortly.
Of course. All right, everyone, have a great day. Bye.
Goodbye.